You know, we always talk about the brain's neurons, right? They get all the glory. But what about the actual architects, the ones building the whole system? Well, today we're going on a journey to map the unseen infrastructure that makes literally everything you do, every thought, every feeling, even possible.
I mean, think about it for a second. How can you catch a ball that's flying at you? Or read this sentence right now. It happens in a split second. That speed, the speed of thought, it's just one of the most incredible things in all of biology. So the big question is, what's the secret? What makes that lightning fast processing actually happen?
Well, the secret, it turns out, is all about the brain's biological superhighways. Yeah, you heard that right. It's this incredible high-speed network that lets electrical signals just zoom from one part of your brain to another. And the key to this whole thing? It's a team of tiny and, honestly, totally unsung heroes.
Okay, so let's meet them. Let's meet the architects of this incredible network. And spoiler alert, they are not the famous neurons we always hear about. But I'll tell you what, without them, our brain's communication would literally grind to a halt.
All right, get ready for a mouthful. They're called oligodendrocytes. These are super specialized cells, and you can find them pretty much everywhere in the brain. But they only have one main job, and it is absolutely critical. They create the insulation for all the brain's wiring. And that insulation, it has a name, myelin. The easiest way to think about it is like the plastic coating on an electrical wire. These oligodendrocytes are myelin makers. They wrap this fatty, protective sleeve around the long tails of nerve cells, which are called axons. And this isn't just for protection. This is the magic ingredient. It dramatically, and I mean dramatically, speeds up those electrical signals. It's what allows your brain to talk to itself at those mind-blowing speeds. So, scientists have known for decades just how important these cells are. But there was this one giant problem, a huge roadblock. They could look at them in tiny little sections of the brain, sure, but trying to map them across the entire brain to see the whole forest for the trees, it was just impossible. The technology didn't exist. Well, until now. And this, right here, is where the story gets really good. We're talking about a revolutionary new map that is changing pretty much everything we thought we knew about the brain's internal architecture. The lead researcher, Dr. Dwight Burgles, he put it perfectly. He said it's like mapping all the trees in a forest, but then also adding information about the soil, the weather, the geology, everything you need to understand the whole ecosystem. See, this wasn't just about counting cells. It was about seeing the big picture, where the cells are, how many there are in one spot versus another, and how that whole landscape shapes how the brain actually works. So how on earth did they do it? It was this brilliant three-step process. First up, they used something called tissue clearing, which basically makes the brain tissue transparent. Yeah, see-through. Then, step two, they hit it with this super fast scanner called a light sheet microscope to get a picture of everything. And for the grand finale, they unleashed an AI to do what no human could, automatically find and count every single one of those myelin-making cells in these gigantic images. And the scale here, it is just mind-boggling. With this new method, researchers were able to map the exact location of over 10 million oligodendrocytes. And that's in a single mouse brain. Let me be clear, this level of detail, this kind of map, it has never, ever been possible before. So what happens when you create a map that's this incredibly detailed? Well, you start to see things, surprising patterns that were basically hiding in plain sight this whole time. So they looked at mice at different ages, from young to old. And the maps show that the brain is always adding more of these myelin-making cells over time. But here's what's so cool. It's not random at all. The process follows a super rigid, pre-planned program. And different parts of the brain add new cells at completely different speeds. And this right here was one of the map's biggest aha moments. Check this out. The parts of the brain that handle sensory information, touch, sound, sight, they had 3 times more of these cells than the part that controls movement. Think about what that means. The brain is literally, physically, building faster superhighways for the information that it needs to process the most urgently. And the surprises just kept coming. For example, in the brain's memory center, the hippocampus, they saw new cells were still being made late in life. That could be a huge clue for lifelong learning. But maybe the most amazing thing was that these patterns, these different densities in different regions, They were incredibly consistent from one individual to the next, even between sexes. It's like they uncovered a fundamental blueprint for how our brains are built.
Okay, so this is all really cool science, but why does it matter in the real world? Well, it matters a lot because these maps are giving us powerful new clues for understanding some really devastating neurological diseases. Let's take multiple sclerosis, or MS. That's a disease where the body's own immune system attacks that precious myelin we've been talking about. Well, by looking at a mouse model of MS, these maps revealed something critical. They saw that some parts of the brain were super vulnerable to damage, but other parts were incredibly resilient. They could bounce back and recover really fast. And if we can figure out why those areas are so tough, it could give us amazing clues about how to protect the whole brain.
And it didn't stop with MS. They did the same thing for Alzheimer's. Now, we usually associate Alzheimer's with those sticky protein plaques, right? Well, they found myelin damage right next to those plaques, which you might expect. But they also found damage way far away in areas that didn't have a lot of plaques. This is a huge deal. It suggests that problems with our myelin-making cells could be a much bigger, more widespread issue in Alzheimer's than anyone realized.
So this incredible new map is really just the beginning of the story, the first chapter. So what's next? What's on the road ahead?
This might actually be the most exciting part of the whole story. The researchers have made these maps, all this data, completely open source. That means they're free for any scientist anywhere in the world to use. This isn't just one team's big discovery. It's a gift to the entire scientific community, designed to turbocharge research for everyone.
And all of this brings us to one last really big question. We now have the blueprint, right? A baseline map of the brain's unseen architects. But we all know our brains aren't set in stone. They change. So the real question is, how do our lives, all the things we learn, the stress we go through, the joy we feel, how does all of that continuously redraw this incredibly intricate map inside our own heads?